Oh no. Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch Chelik Aleph, please. Okay. I need one more second. Okay, first question. Is it possible for a Yid to be a Gilgul of a Goy? Thank you. Or vice versa? And there's another question also about Gilgulim of Goy. Is it possible for Goyim to be Gilgulim of other Goyim? So I have a sefer here called Mishnah Sa Gilgulim. All the details about Gilgulim, and over here he brings us a machlekes amongst the Mekubalim, if Gilgul is only Shaykh by Yidden or also by Goyim. And he does bring over here that there were certain Goyim, famous Goyim, which there was Gilgulim of them. It brings in the beginning a whole thing about Esav, which you can argue Esav wasn't really a Goy, but it talks also about Lavan. Weiter you can argue if he was a Goy or not, but then, if I'm not mistaken, he brings over here Terach and Ioiv, Nachor, and Esav and Titus, and others, Esav Haman. So it seems like there were some Goyim that were definitely Gilgulim, but as a general rule, it seems like the Talmid Arizal mostly say it's not so. Regarding the second question, can a Yid come into the Gilgul of a Goy, or vice versa? So for a Goy to come into the Gilgul of a Yid seemingly is not Shaykh. I don't see that option over here. But for a Yid to come into the Gilgul of a Goy, it seems like it is Shaykh. And that's why it's one of the reasons why we say every day, Baruch Atah Hashem Shelo Yasani Goy. Like why say that every morning? We were born a long time ago. So one of the explanations is brought out in Shulchan Aruch also is because to say that on the Sham of a Goy didn't connect to us. So you see over here that it's Shaykh, that, the opposite. That our neshama came back to ourselves and did not go into the neshama of a Goy. Every day, Kivyachol, the neshama comes back. So basically, it seems like there is such a possibility for you to be nisgalgal in the roof of a Goy. However, for a Goy to Yid not, and Goyim to Goyim Bechlal, it seems like it's a machlokes. So many more small letters over here. If anybody wants to check it up afterwards, more pratim, bevakasha. Why isn't Chabad so fond of the Chazon Ish? The Chazon Ish was a big Talmud Chacham, a big Rov that he lived in Eretz Yisrael, and he didn't learn Chassidus, and he was against Chassidus. It wasn't his shita, was against learning Chassidus. Lepoyel, he himself was, it seems like he supported Chabad in different areas. He gave donations to yeshivas in Chabad. There were people that he suggested to them to learn in Chabad. There was even a letter of the Frierdiker Rebbe advising somebody asking about a shidduch to ask the advice of the Chazon Ish. So he was definitely a big Talmud Chacham. After he passed away, so the Rebbe was by Nichum Avelim by somebody, and the story goes that after Nichum Avelim, since Chazon Ish had just passed away, they were speaking about him, and the Rebbe mentioned that he was a Yerei Shamayim. Somebody else was someone else was talking negatively about him, and the Rebbe said he was a Yerei Shamayim, and somebody else said he was a Lamdan, and the Rebbe came back to say he learned it with Yerei Shamayim. So our derech is not to make fun, but he was a different derech, not our derech. At the same time, there's a famous story that after he passed away, if the Chazon Ish passed away, so there was a chassid, his name was Reb Fol Lakan, Rabbi Yochanan Father. Reb Fol Lakan was Farbrengen, and by Farbrengen he said that the Chazon Ish, now that he's in Gan Eden, he's jealous of Lubavitcher children that are learning Tanya. And this statement of Fol Lakan got out, and a lot of Misnagdim got very upset, and they sent letters to the Rebbe, how dare your Chassidim speak that way about the Chazon Ish. So after bringing, the Rebbe said that the only one that gained from here is the Israeli post office, because people had to pay for stamps. But the Rebbe said it's true. The Rebbe said every tzaddik has his own place in Gan Eden, and someone that doesn't learn Chassidus, he's missing a certain thing. So by Pashas, we understand that someone that only learns Tanya and doesn't learn anything else, he's also going to be jealous of the Chazon Ish, because the Chazon Ish learns a lot more Torah than him. But someone that learns Torah to the best of his abilities, and he learns Chassidus, so then he's the Tachlis HaShleimus. Hashenkin the Chazon Ish didn't. So in general, he's not our derech, not our kav. We respect him, but we don't hold from him that kind of way. And there's another thing, Bechlal, about the Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish had a different derech in Limud. He wouldn't look at the Rishonim. He learned the Gemara, came up with his own pirushim. And therefore, he has a lot of halachas chumras that he said, or dinim that he said that nobody else said. And so the Misnagdim originally, that's what they also agreed that's his derech halimud. But later on, they're trying to cover up on that. They're trying to say no, it's that like it's written different svarim. They took it out from where it's written. But really, that's the way he was. That was his derech halimud. It wasn't a regular derech, and it was bepashtus, not the way the Messiah of Klal Yisrael to follow the Rishonim and Achreinim. And that's why his derech halimud wasn't accepted. In addition to that, Rabbi Ben Shimon Senior, that's Rabbi Avram Ben Shimon, so he likes to make fun of Misnagdim and learning, so he writes all the time, making fun of the Chazon Ish and learning, showing his Piskei Halacha doesn't make sense, and so on. And now the Chazon Ish is famous in the Piskei Dinim in regards to Hilchas Eretz Yisrael, Shemitah and Trumas and Maises and things like that. And he's pretty much the only Pesach of today, meaning we have the Rambam and from then, but Halacha L'Maisa is the only one, and everyone goes by him. And there's even, again, from the Rebbe also, that they told the Rebbe that in Farchabad, they're going by the Pesakim of the Chazon Ish, and it's pretty accepted. So Rabbi Ben Shimon Senior claims that his whole Piskei Dinim that everyone makes him so famous for is really all from the Ragachover. That there was a certain Rav of the Talmud Chacham that was a go-between the Chazon Ish and the Ragachover, and basically all of his Piskei Dinim are just the Ragachover's Dinim, so there's nothing from him on his own. That I heard from Rabbi Ben Shimon Senior. But again, they know our derech is, the derech of Yosher of Chassidim is that we respect him. We have our derech of learning Chassidus, and he was a great man, but he didn't learn Chassidus, so therefore he missed out. But we don't have to make fun of him because he was a bigger Talmud Chacham than anyone that we know today. The Pashtus. Can a mashpia make a mistake, or is it directly from the Rebbe? There's a Masechta called Masechta Hoyriyos. Masechta Hoyriyos is one of the Masechtas in Mishnayos, the whole Masechta Gemara. The whole Masechta Hoyriyos is about what happens if the Beis Din makes a mistake. The Beis Din is the senior Beis Din that was in the Beis Hamikdash, and they were the Nasim of Klal Yisrael, and they paskened halachas, and the whole Masechta discussed what kind of mistakes they possibly made. So it's understood that as much as a tzaddik is a tzaddik, but a tzaddik is fort melubish beguf, so therefore he can make a mistake. So what happens to L'Poel Mamish? The question is not really, the question is more, do I have to follow him if possibly he made a mistake? And the answer is, I have to follow him. If you lived in the times of the Beis Din, it was usher for you to question the Beis Din. But it's possible they made a mistake, there's whole Masechta. It's possible. But the same Eibishter that said it's possible for them to make a mistake, and they have to bring a carbon for it, that same Eibishter tells you, you have to listen to whatever the Beis Din says. If they make a mistake, they'll clarify and they'll tell you afterwards. So the same thing applies to Mashpia and the Rebbe, that when the Mashpia tells you something, of course the Mashpia is a human being, I'm sure he can make mistakes. However, you as a Talmud, if you have a Sela Charav, your job, your responsibility is to listen to your Mashpia. I often talk to Bachrim, and they tell me about certain behaviors that they're doing, and I ask them, did you ask your Mashpia? And often they say, yeah, I spoke to my Mashpia about it. And when that happens, I never mix in, even though sometimes I strongly disagree. I think it's very wrong what the Mashpia said, but I don't tell that to the Bachar because that's what his Mashpia said, that's what the Rebbe, that's what he has to do. Even though I personally think his Mashpia is wrong. If I would see his Mashpia, I would talk to him and tell him why I think he's wrong. But for the Bachar, at that point, he has to do what his Mashpia said because that's what the Rebbe says, so listen to your Mashpia. It could be a mistake, but that's not, unless the Mashpia comes and comes back to you and says, I made a mistake and therefore you should change or whatever it is, till then you follow your Mashpia's instructions, regardless of the fact that it could be that he made a mistake. In Parshas Toldos, we learn how Rivka had to go to Shem because she did not have Ruach HaKodesh, and she wanted to know what's going on with her pregnancy. Later, she all of a sudden has Ruach HaKodesh when telling Yaakov what Esav was going to kill him. So the Bachar is wondering, if she had Ruach HaKodesh later, why didn't she have it earlier? So when it comes to Ruach HaKodesh, so we got a sefer on Ruach HaKodesh, how the instructions for Ruach HaKodesh goes, but in Ruach HaKodesh, with Pashas, it doesn't mean that they're tzaddikim, that wherever they go, everything is open in front of them all the time, and they see everything, whatever happened, whatever will happen. Ruach HaKodesh is the Eibishter gives tzaddikim a power, and sometimes it's a kind of nevuah. Hashem speaks to them, and Hashem reveals to them certain things. So in many tzaddikim, there was the Chayzer Melublin was famous, that the Chayzer was called the seer, he was able to see. He was famous that he looked at a person, he saw whatever happened in the person's life. Till then, whatever will happen weiter, it was a unique thing that a certain tzaddik had. It seems like other tzaddikim that might have been greater or the same level as the Chayzer Melublin didn't have that specific koyach in Ruach HaKodesh. So Ruach HaKodesh has many different eifanim. So but Pashtus, when it came to her own pregnancy, so over there Hashem did not reveal to her what it was, and Hashem, that's why she went to Shem. There's also discussion why she didn't go to Yitzchak, her husband, who was obviously a tzaddik as well, and he also had Ruach HaKodesh. That's a different question. The Bachar wasn't asking. That is discussed also. Yitzchak was a Korev. But I'll go on in the general question, when it comes to Ruach HaKodesh, it doesn't mean everything is a crystal ball. You see the whole world, whatever happened to every single person. It means that they have Ruach HaKodesh, whatever Hashem decides for them to have Ruach HaKodesh. And when it came to the story of Yaakov and Esav, there she had Ruach HaKodesh. What bracha do you make on non-kosher meat? So there's Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch in Simon Kuf Tzadik Vov. Non-kosher meat can mean from non-kosher animals as well. So Alter Rebbe writes in Simon Kuf Tzadik Vov Sif Aleph, Misha Ochal Dvar Isur. Someone eats something which is forbidden to eat. Afal Pisha Einei Osur Ela Midivrei Soifrim. Even though it's only Osur Medarabonon Ein Mezamin Alav. You don't make a zimun. And then he continues, he doesn't make Birkas HaMazon, and so on. You don't make a Bracha Rishono. And that's what basically the halacha, Alter Rebbe is a whole back and forth. The halacha is lachriya. Shim achal isur b'shoigi gevarach acharel. If by mistake a person he ate something and he made a bracha rishona after he finished eating it, he was told it's not kosher. So since it was by mistake, he should make a bracha acharel. Aval mezid, someone that's eating b'mezid non-kosher food should not make a bracha either the beginning or the end. Then in halacha, the Alter Rebbe says, im achal isur b'makim sakon, if you're in danger. And the only way to survive is by eating not kosher food. The divrei akil mevarachal of tchila v'soif. Then you make a bracha rishon and achrona. So if it will be not kosher meat for a not kosher animal, you will make a shahakil. And afterwards make a beit in nefashis. Sheheter hu oichel. Hu mitzvah eitzel hasan nafshik. What?
But if someone's forcing you to eat it.
Someone's forcing you to eat it. You don't want to, so then you do your best not to eat it, and you don't let it come into your mouth.
Like kind of like would you make a bracha?
I don't think so. I think you try your best not to eat it. As I say, so also some place can bring an interesting shaila. What happens if someone is taking sakana? He has no choice; he must have it because he's otherwise going to die. But he's grossed out by the fact that he has to eat this food. So they bring a svara that if you're eating food which is really, really gross, you don't make a bracha because you have no hana from it. So they bring such a svara that because since it's so gross, you don't make a bracha. There's a story that Rabbi Nissim Mangel, he says a story when he was in the Holocaust. So together with him there was a yid that was a descendant of the Chassam Sofer, was a rav also. And this yid was together with him and his father, and when they were serving the non-kosher food in the barracks by the suppers, whatever they had soup with some non-kosher things in it. So Rabbi Mangel says his father told him, "You must eat, otherwise you're not going to survive." And it came to this yid, this Einukol of Sam Sofer. So his father was trying to convince the yid, "You have to eat. It's a pikuach nefesh. You must." So he says, "I can't eat treifa. I can't put treifa food into my mouth." So the father told him, "According to halacha, you must. You're going against halacha by starving yourself to death." So the Yid said, I understand, I know I'm going to have Gehenna for this, but I cannot bring myself to put not kosher food into my mouth. And Taka, he passed away. So that's al derech what this question, if a person's mom is grossed out by it, he shouldn't make a bracha. But if a case where a person is stuck and he has no choice and he's not so grossed out, then he does have to make a bracha. When the Mittel Rebbe said that when two Yidden meet, they should speak about Yichud Allah and Yichud Tato, is it dafka and just that Inyan, or to speak Chassidus? But Pashtus, I think it's anything Chassidus, not specifically Yichud Allah, Yichud Tato. Of course, someone that learns Chassidus well will tell you that everything in Chassidus is connected to Yichud Allah, Yichud Tato, but that's already on a deeper level. On a simple level, I think that everything in Chassidus is the same idea. Just a Maimer Musgar, Rabbi Elkan, had a koch in that verse. He always used to say, it doesn't mean when you meet your friend, you're supposed to say, oh, I have to talk about the Yichud Allah, Yichud Tato. Rather, it means when you meet your friend, that should be the natural thing. It says, L'dugma, imagine two Bachrim that follow the same team in sports, and there are different yeshivas, and they haven't spoken to each other for a month or two. When they meet each other, the first thing, how's the team doing? It's not like it's a mitzvah. It's obvious that they know they follow the same team. It's obviously on their mind, and they're discussing the last game, the last play, whatever happened recently. So lahavdil over here, when a person's in Chassidus, or when you speak to someone right away, I just geschmack a thing that happened, or it's a normal thing. It comes out automatic. So al derech zeh, imagine Bachim that are into Rabbi Ben Shimon's story. So if they happen to miss the story, they're obviously going to come to Shabbos. No, what was the story this week? It's not like it's a mitzvah they have to ask because it's a geschmack thing to do. So al derech when it comes to Chassidus, it should be natural to you. You see someone else, obviously you're both involved in Chassidus, and that's why you ask that question. Bacher asked the question, I'm not going to repeat it out loud. I'm just going to say that one of the letters he spelled backwards, I guess it was Bedavka. And the answer is, for a Bacher, definitely not. Next question, is it a big deal to learn with your brain, not with your lips? Meaning not saying the words out loud. Alter Rebbe in Shulchan Aruch Hilchos Talmud Torah, Perek Beis Halach Yud Beis, the Alter Rebbe writes, V'chol adam tzorech lihizoyer lohitzi bisvaso v'lashmiya la'ozno. A person has to make sure to say the words and to be able to hear what he's saying, kol mashalemed, whether it's Mikra, Mishnah, or Talmud, whether it's Psukim, or Shnayis, or Gemara, Tanakh, or any subject. Eleim came b'shas iyun, lohavim davar miteich davar. Unless he's learning be'iyun, he's trying to figure things out. and as a result of thinking deeply, he's not able to focus if he's going to say the words. In that case, he's able to learn with his brain. And he continues, whoever learns behir levad, if you're able to learn with your mouth, at the same exact level of understanding, whether reading it with your eyes or with your lips, and you don't, you're not yotze the mitzvah of learning. So in short, the answer is that if you learn better without saying the words, then you can learn better. But if you have the same level of understanding, whether you say the words or when you with your mind, then you must say the words out loud. It says in Beitza Daf Hey Amud Beis that we can't clap because it will lead to music on Shabbos. But by Seder Nigunim we sing, and also by Chazoras Hashatz as well. Are we doing something that is asur? So in the Sichos Chelik Aleph, in the Sich on Parshas Shmini, the Rebbe talks about the Haftarah of that week, talks about David HaMelech dancing, and the Rebbe has a whole Sich about the importance of dancing and singing to serve Hashem. And the Rebbe concludes by saying this is a siyua, this is a support to the minhag by Chassidim, and we see this by the Rebbeim as well, that Shabbos and Yom Tov we dance and we clap our hands, v'chulu. Even though according to the Mishnah we have to have a special explanation according to Nigla, and on Order 32 the Rebbe says, Shulchan Aruch, and the Shabbos Shuvas Minchas Elazar, where it explains that even al pi Nigla it's permitted. But from this again, the Rebbe says we do it with Pashtus, and the Rebbe says the Tam Pnimi is because we're getting closer to Mashiach, so that's why we're behaving in the ways of Mashiach, which is the ways of Mefazer Mecharke Lifnei Hashem. So in short, the answer is that yes, according to Halacha, it needs a special explanation. However, there's permission to do so. There's actually a Yid, a Rav in Muncie, his name is Rabbi Gedali Oberlander. He came here once for summer, he gave a drasha once, and he was telling me that he learned the sugya, and not only are you allowed to clap your hands for singing on Shabbos, even stamazay clapping your hands. Meaning, well, a lot of times something, a Bacher says a smart thing in Zal, everyone starts clapping their hands. So on Shabbos, that's a problem. So when it comes to singing and Zmiris Shvar Hashem, that's for sure permitted 100%. But stamazay clapping, when someone gives a drasha, that's not okay. And he said it's mashma, even that's fine. So I didn't learn his whole pilpul. I can't tell you, but I can tell you the regular minhag by Chassidim is that we for sure clap our hands for davening and singing and farbrengens, but we do not do so by other cases. There's also a letter of the Rebbe where there was a bachim that were doing Mesilas Shabbos, and by Mesilas Shabbos they was in a Yisrael. And a neighbor, they were Taimanim, and over there was some of the older, the Taimani rabbis were complaining that the Bachrim were singing and dancing with the kids, clapping their hands and dancing, so it was against halacha. So the Rebbe writes a whole letter to tell the Bachrim what to tell these people, and if it's Bachrim, you go light, to tell these the Taimani rabbis, to show them the sources, why it's fine, and this way the Rebbe has obviously wants to see that it's fine, they're going to help out as well. It's important to eat fish by all Seudah Shabbos. Does this also include gefilte fish? So the answer of Pashtus is yes, any kind of fish. Not only that, the reason why we eat gefilte fish, I tried finding the sources inside. I always heard this as a child. I didn't see it inside. You have a source for it. That the reason for eating gefilte fish is because there was a concern about boider. When you eat regular fish, today everything is filleted. I don't know exactly how they do it today. For some reason, it's hard to find today fish with all the bones inside, unless you go fishing yourself. Everything is filleted, there's no bones anymore. But in the past, it wasn't common. In the past, most fish you had was with bones. Now, eating fish with bones on Shabbos is very complicated because every time you take out a bone, so this fish, I don't know how many guys of you ever ate a piece of salmon with the bones inside, but mamish, every centimeter, there's another bone over there. So it's almost impossible to eat and not pull out the bones. You put it in your mouth, you're going to choke, chas v'shalom. So you're constantly pulling it out. So on Shabbos, you have to cut it up, and it's a whole mumchashav that I do it on Shabbos, how to eat the fish without doing boider. So as a result, as if I understand correctly, that's the reason for gefilte fish, and they purposely did so. They ended up they ground the fish before Shabbos. This way, there's no bones in it, and this way, there's no problem of boider. So definitely, that's the way that people did it. But Koponim, it's for sure fine to do so. There's nothing to give fish on Shabbos. It's for sure a good thing to do. Is it a problem to give out Rebbe pictures on Mivtzoim if maybe they will get thrown out or the like? He adds Hashem's name. So there's letters of the Rebbe regarding putting pictures of Rebbeim on stamps in Eretz Yisrael. I mean, true, throughout the world, there's a minhag by the postal office that they make a commemorative stamps. Now the stamps, they put pictures of different choshevet people, presidents or celebrities or whatever it may be, professors and so on. So in Eretz Yisrael, there's a discussion to put pictures of the daily Yisrael on the stamps. So the Rebbe came out against it. The Rebbe said two reasons. One reason the Rebbe said because stamps end up falling into the garbage, so it's not respectful. The second thing the Rebbe says, when you put a stamp, so you have to always stamp it. You'll see this post office, they put a stamp on the word. They have their, whatever it's called, like some kind of a stamp on top of a stamp, basically. So it's not appropriate, and therefore the Rebbe says not to do so. And other Gedei Yisrael as well were asked the same question about Bechlal Tzadikim, and they all said the same idea, not to put pictures of Tzadikim on stamps because it's going to be a zilzul. It won't be respectful for these pictures. So based on that svara, it makes sense. I understand if somebody would say that he should not give out pictures of Miftzayim because it could lead to the same things, that people are not going to stamp on it, but the same kind of chash that might get thrown out. However, at the same time, we have the minhag of giving out l'chaims as an old minhag, and there's pictures of the Rebbe, always a picture of the Rebbe there. And so there was always a concept of giving out the Sichat Shavuot. Many publications that we give out on Miftzayim on the streets have pictures of the Rebbe. So you can easily argue that when you're giving it out as stamps, it's randomly, anyone can buy it, anyone can use it as a chash. But on Miftzayim, you're giving it to somebody, especially if you tell them 2-3 words, this is a holy rabbi, you shouldn't put his picture, you should have the right to respect for it. In that case, with Pashtus, it's different, and therefore, it's reason to say that it's different. So again, I understand if someone would be makpid not to do so, but I understand if someone would say it's fine because he's giving it out as a...
The New York Times.
The New York Times, there's also these pictures, yeah, but I don't know how the Rebbe was involved in those... The Rebbe approved. Okay, fine. Could be. So okay.
The garbage after.
So it's an interesting question, but the stamp says 2 letters about it, and it was another place word as well. So it's svara lakan or lakan. I'm not. I'm just sharing the svaras. I'm not asking. It's more a question for a rav than a mashpia, but yeah. Can you know that there's actually an Eibishter? Not asking for 600,000 Yidden, etc. That's l'chayra all begeder belief. Is it possible to bring a logical proof, not based off of other people's belief? V'chulu. So this Bacher is saying that not other people's information is not considered belief. If you go that route, that you don't believe what other people say, and that's not going to be considered logical, then really nothing about you could be believed. How do you know that Columbus discovered America? Everybody knows that Columbus came from Spain and he came to America. How do you know? Everyone says. How does everyone? So maybe everyone made it up. How do you know you're not adopted? Or because you have the same deal looking at your parents? Maybe not. Maybe Taka happens to be. Once you start challenging things that other people say, unless you see it with your own eyes, then really it's endless. Maybe not. Not only that. Even if even your own eyes, what I saw yesterday, maybe my mind's playing tricks on me. There are many stories of people elucidating, coming up with things they don't remember afterwards. Whatever I saw a minute ago, maybe it's not there anymore. Once you start challenging things that are pretty much basically accepted, and there's no end to it. Manas Friedman has a good line. He says, imagine you're walking in a desert and you see a rock on the ground. How did the rock get here? Oh, it must be that someone put it here. No, what are you talking about? The wind blew it. Okay, fine. You're walking weiter in the desert, you see suddenly 5 rocks piled one top of the other. That for sure someone. No, it happened to be a tornado somehow, and the rocks one on top of the other. Okay. You go weiter, you see a laptop on the ground. Someone put it there. No. There was a tornado that hit a junkyard, and all the leather and all the metal, and put the wires in together and made it like that. No one's going to believe that. Why? Why? Why not? Because what? Because it can't be. Why not? If it is a good tornado and all the right conditions, it hits the right junkyard, it has the right metals and the right wires, and everything is in the right place, why not? LMI, yeah, say there. And maybe 1 in a trillion it can happen, but we don't think that kind of way. If you look at a human being, for a human being to say that the scientists that study the human being, doctors and so on, the human eyeball, the human fingertip, everything about a human person is so much more sophisticated and complicated than a computer. So if a computer for sure had to be made by someone and put there, so then this happened by mistake, this happened by accident. Oh, but maybe. Okay, fine. So just like you think maybe, and so you think that the computer happened by mistake, the same ideas. It's really, again, when you challenge maybe, then there's no end. No one can argue with maybe. That's why Chassidus talks about that. The worst klippa is called amolik, because amolik is gematria sofik. Sofik means maybe. You can never answer a maybe. I can give you all the proofs in the world for something, but the moment you say maybe, fine, maybe. I'm identical to my father. I'm the same thing. No, maybe you're adopted. Maybe it happens to be you're your father's double. You happen to have the same DNA. There could be. Everything could be. Yeah, once it's maybe, it's maybe. Once you maybe, you can never argue. So logic means what it makes sense, what it seems to most people that this makes sense. If everyone is saying this, it has to be. So this that Hashem created the world that we created by what they call intelligent design, there's no shaila. Whoever disagrees with that is like someone that's believing that a computer happened by accident, that there was a tornado that hit a junkyard and it turned into the computer. But if you don't believe that, then you should believe that Hashem created the person as well. And along the same line, just like you believe that Columbus discovered America, everyone understands that, the same thing you'll believe over here. That's a simple answer. If you want more information, there's a book over here by a Professor Block. He was a professor, he's a shliach, and not officially a shliach, but he was a very big chassid of the Rebbe. He's a professor in London, Ontario, in a university. So he writes a book called God, Rationality, and Mysticism, where he basically brings back and forth proofs and not proofs about Hashem, if you can make it logical or not, and he goes back and forth what's logic. And at the end of the book, he brings a scientific, it's a logical argument that there is Hashem, and it's based off NDEs. NDEs are near-death experiences, people that Shama left their body and they came back. And he basically means thousands, he said there are thousands and thousands of cases all over the world, and for that to happen, that everyone should agree to the same lie, that doesn't make sense. Again, it's all logically. He accepts, you could say that there's 50,000 people in different countries in the world, they all came up with the same lie on their own. Of course, it could happen. Well, again, once you say Amalek, once you say Suffolk, once you say maybe, you can never argue. But mitzad the regular logic, he agrees. If everyone wants to read the book, you come afterwards and I can share it with you. Why are phones not allowed at all times in yeshiva? Phones are not allowed at all times in the yeshiva because it's a very distracting thing to have a phone at all times in the yeshiva. There's actually, last week I was talking to Abacher, he's complaining to me about lunchtime in yeshiva. Because lunchtime, he said, it's terrible. You walk into the lunchroom, everyone's on their phones. You can't talk to anybody. He said, breakfast is Amachai, everyone's sitting and talking. A moment there's the lunch, everyone has their phones. You lose any kind of social, as Abacher himself, he has a phone, but he feels like it's such a bad thing to have. It's unfortunate in the world today, there's many studies that are happening where this is a new generation the guys are growing up in. In the past, there was no such thing. It's a new generation, and there's many studies that are going on to try to see what kind of negative effects it's having on today's generation. The fact that they're growing up without a normal kind of interactions with friends, with peers, and everything is a social media. There's nothing normal. It's a very big chesed. People are noticing it, and there's more and more communities, not just Yidden, Havdol Goyim as well, that are trying to stop technology, stall technology, to make it as little as possible. There are many Goyish companies that are making phones that don't have social media on it because they realize how bad it is. So it's an understandable thing that the more you have distractions, the more you can't focus on life in a healthy kind of way. And especially for a Bach in Yeshiva, especially a Bach in Timchet Mimim, all the more so. A Bach in Timchet Mimim, his job is to bring light into the world, not that the world take over him. So for sure over here, it's so much more important to not be connected to Ilam Hazard as little as possible. And therefore, in Yeshiva, like many other schools, they also do their best to limit the amount of technology. Are the Tziyonim Oichrei Yisrael? Tziyonim are people that are called Zionists, or do they disgrace or make Yidden bad?
Shmuel loves them.
There's a whole bunch of questions over here. So the answer of the pastor says yes, the Tziyonim are very, very bad people. What are the Tziyonim? The Tziyonim were Zionists, who were people that their goal was to create a land of Israel, to create a land for the Jewish people, but the land should have no connection to Hashem and to Torah mitzvahs. And when they founded Eretz Yisrael, every country in the world has a declaration of independence, where they write a star where they're saying, we are now an independent country, and we thank Hashem for giving us this power. There's only one country in the world that does not mention Hashem in their declaration of independence. And that's what's called the Jewish state, Eretz Yisrael, because the people there, their goal was to go against Hashem. There was a whole fight about that thing. So finally, after a fight, one of the rabbis pushed, so there was someone that they finally agreed to write Tzur Yisrael, the rock of the Yidden. So they wanted to teach it, the rock, us, we were the ones that did it. But the rabbi was happy because you could also teach Tzur Yisrael, meaning Hashem. And a lot of, I think the Rebbe also was very upset about it, because basically you're getting out of it. So they're definitely, the goal of the Tziyonim was to go against the Yidden, unfortunately against Yiddishkeit. There's a famous story, one of them once was when negotiating with Hitler, Yimach Shemoy, about sending animals to Israel. They wanted to settle Palestine. So he said, I'd rather have a cow in Israel than have a Jew in Poland, because Poland, who cares about Poland? But Israel, we have to develop the land. So they were very much against Eibishter, against Yiddishkeit, and against Betzim Yidden, Rahman al-Islam. When they wanted to make Israel originally, they were looking into other countries. They're looking into a country called Uganda, famous for Entebbe. That's where they wanted to first settle, till they finally settled on Israel because too many people were pushing towards it. So obviously, the real Zionists, the ones that started the Shitta, were really terrible people. People that were mamash kefrim apikursim, with the kind of people it says at the end of Perek Lamed Beis in Tanya, and these people, you have to be really hateful to them in the most strong way. However, the second question is almost a question on the same topic. I wonder why. But the second question is, what's the difference between the Shitta of Chabad and the Shitta of Satmar and everybody else? So this continues to the fact that Satmar is stuck in the past. Satmar is stuck and assumes that the same people that were these people that were 70 years ago, 80 years ago, 100 years ago, Satmar assumes that the people today are the same thing, and therefore you have to treat them the same kind of way. Chabad is realizing that most of these people are long gone. Most of the Tzionim today are b'chlal not like that. They're begeder Tanoikesh and Ishbu, and they're Jewish people, and the Mela, what it says in Tanya does not apply to them because they don't know better. And that's one important observation that Chabad notices, which really, it's very, very, very obvious. You talk to these people today, you see very clearly that the Zionists of today, Kivyachol, are b'chlal not begeder of those Zionists. In addition to that, in Chabad we have a very big dogish and Ahavas Yisrael. That's a very important thing. And therefore, whenever we could show love to a Jew, we'll do our best to show love to the Jew at the same time. Like it says in Perek Lamed Beis, earlier in the Perek over there, that when you could have the hatred towards his negativity and love towards his good, you're able to do so. Another Nakuda, which by the Rebbe is very important, is that the Peil Mamish, there are many Yidden living in Eretz Yisrael today. And if you're just going to shun whatever they stand for, it can cause a lot of damage to Yidden, Sai Begashmis, and even Beruchnius. So therefore, what's called, you make the best of what you can make, what you can do. And therefore, in cases where you're able to use the government, which is there now for Kedusha, so obviously you do your best. And when it comes to the army of Peil Mamish is protecting Yidden. So of course we believe in Hashem, but you have to make a Keli and Teva. So since the army B'Pashas Al Teva is what's protecting the Yidden, so you have to support the army. If you could sit and learn, it's more important. But otherwise not. So basically, where Chabad is Bashar being more, in a sense, being more realistic, and also focusing on the fact that Yidden is good over here, and most of them are not shaykh to the bad. And Satmar is talking to the past, and it looks at every single one of the people that are called as Zionists today as if he's the people from the past that were very big Rishoy. And this is a hemshech to the second question, that it seems that, so it says the Satmar Rebbe, he himself used to say that he's a follower of the Rebbe Rashab. Because the Rebbe Rashab, who was in the times of those Tzionim, so he wrote terrible letters against him, really, really harsh things against the early Zionists. And he claims he's a real follower of the Rebbe Rashab. So the Rebbe is changing Chas v'Sholom. So obviously, again, the Rebbe didn't change anything, but the Rebbe is being realistic what's happening today with the people that we're dealing with. In addition to that since the Rebbe B'Peil Mamish met with these people, met with many Zionists, and therefore people thought that the Rebbe is Kivyachol accepting Zionists, which is not true. The Rebbe almost never ever said the words State of Israel. The Rebbe always said the land of Israel. Saying Medinas Yisrael, the state is a Kivyachol acknowledging as a state, the Rebbe almost never said. The last part of this question is, what about the religious Zionists? So here there's a big discussion, but there were many people, even in the beginning, that were fooled by the Zionists, and they thought it's not a good idea, and they brought sources from Torah to go to Eretz Yisrael now already, and that became a big machlokes. So they were, the original Zionists, the main movements, the main people behind it were terrible people, big Rishoyim, but there were also many Fruma Yidden that went along, even big Talmidei Chachamim. Some of them can even be called Tzaddikim as well, that they went along with the Zionists because they thought that it's good over here that can be used for Kedusha, and you can end up with it'll be the beginning of the Geula, bringing Mashiach. The Rebbe Rashab was very strong against these people. He said they're making a big mistake. It's a wrong according to the Rambam, it's wrong according to other things, and why it was wrong. So, but the religious Zionists are for sure, Chas v'Sholom, not as bad as the other people. We disagree on one important prat, but doesn't mean that we're completely separate from them. And there's actually, back to the Chazon Ish, the first question about the Rebbe always wanted that there should be all the religious political parties in Israel should run together. If they run together, they'll end up getting more votes, and the religious will have a stronger place. So the Chazon Ish was against it, because the religious parties included the religious Zionists. And the Chazon Ish said, we don't agree with them with Hashkafa, and that's why we're not. The Chazon Ish was a Fruma Yid, so Fruma Yidden disagreed with religious Zionists. He didn't want to be together with them. The Rebbe's response was, Ma kesher Hashkafa over here. He agreed in a certain party. There are people that don't vote for anybody. So those kind of people, it's understood. But this is a person that you have a party that you're supporting. So if you're supporting one party already, it means you want to have more seats in the government. So who cares if you don't agree with them? They care for Yiddishkeit, they care for Torah mitzvahs. So of course we disagree with them basic stuff about Israel. But in Yiddishkeit, Torah mitzvahs we do agree upon, so we should go together. Unfortunately, the Rebbe's wishes were not fulfilled yet about running as an individual party. Ad kan the sha'azu.